The depths of possibility. In the vast expanse of the cosmos, the Krellian Empire had charted thousands of worlds across dozens of star systems. Their sleek, crystalline vessels sliced through the void with unmatched precision, their technology the envy of the known galaxy. Yet for all their advancement, for all their mastery of space travel and stellar engineering, there remained one frontier that sent shivers through their elongated spines: water worlds. The Krellians were beings of silicon and mineral, their translucent exoskeletons housing complex networks of crystalline nerves and plasma conduits rather than blood vessels. Evolution had crafted them for the arid desert planets orbiting their binary suns, where water existed only in precious underground reservoirs. Their bodies would literally dissolve in prolonged contact with large bodies of water, their molecular bonds weakening until they simply melted away. It wasn't merely cultural fear, it was existential terror. First Officer Zareth stood at the observation deck of the scout ship Luminous Edge, his forearms crossed tightly against his chest as the blue-green orb of the newly discovered planet filled the view screen. "Scan complete, First Officer," announced the science specialist. "Planetary surface is 71% covered in dihydrogen monoxide. Atmosphere saturated with water vapor. Temperature ranges support liquid state across most of the planet's surface." Zareth's crystalline features hardened. Classification: extreme hazard. Recommend immediate quarantine protocols and warning beacons. A disappointed murmur rippled through the bridge crew. Water worlds were worthless to the Empire. Dangerous, untouchable wastelands to be marked and avoided. This system had shown promise for colonization, but with its third planet so thoroughly dominated by the corrosive substance, it would likely be passed over entirely. "Very well," Zareth sighed. "Deploy the warning beacons and prepare tow." The ship lurched violently, throwing several crew members to the floor. Warning lights bathed the bridge in crimson. "Report," Zareth demanded, steadying himself against a console. "Propulsion system failure. Unknown cause." The pilot's fingers danced across holographic controls. "We're being pulled into the planet's gravity well." Zareth felt the cold grip of terror seize his core. Emergency protocols. All power to thrusters. But it was too late. The Luminous Edge plummeted toward the vast blue expanse below, its systems failing one by one as they entered the thick atmosphere. The last thing Zareth saw before impact was an endless ocean rushing up to meet them. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the bridge of the EMDF Poseidon, Earth's most advanced submarine carrier. At 35, she had already earned a reputation as one of the Maritime Defense Force's most capable officers, with an intuitive understanding of ocean warfare that bordered on prescient. "Captain, NORAD reports an unidentified object entering Earth's atmosphere over the Pacific. Trajectory suggests splashdown approximately 200 miles west of our position." Alina raised an eyebrow. "Satellite debris." "Negative, ma'am. Object is decelerating in patterns inconsistent with unpowered reentry. They're classifying it as a potential UO, unidentified underwater object." The term had replaced UFO in military parlance, since most unexplained phenomena now occurred beneath the waves rather than in the skies. "Set intercept course," Alina ordered, her voice calm but edged with excitement. After 15 years of service, she thought she'd seen everything the oceans could offer. Perhaps today would prove her wrong. "Time to intercept." "Approximately 40 minutes, Captain." Alina nodded. "Take us down to cruising depth and notify the rapid response team. I want everyone ready for anything." The massive submarine carrier descended smoothly into the depths, its revolutionary hydrogen propulsion system leaving no trace of its passage. Designed as Earth's premier underwater capital ship, the Poseidon carried a complement of smaller submersibles, autonomous drones, and a full battalion of aquatic infantry. If whatever fell from the sky posed a threat, they would be ready. When they reached the crash site, Alina stared in disbelief at the tactical display. The object, clearly an artificial craft of some kind, had survived impact with the water's surface and now rested on a ledge 300 meters below sea level. No known design matches in the database, Captain, her XO reported. Definitely not Russian, Chinese, or European. What about radiation levels? Clean. No radioactive or chemical signatures we can detect. Alina's mind raced through the possibilities. A secret weapon test gone wrong. An experimental craft from a private aerospace company. Or something else entirely. Launch reconnaissance drones, she ordered. Keep our distance until we know what we're dealing with. The drone's high-definition cameras revealed a vessel unlike anything human engineering had produced. A crystalline structure with organic-looking curves and protrusions, approximately the size of a small passenger aircraft. More surprisingly, it appeared largely intact despite the impact. Captain, we're detecting movement inside the vessel, the sensor officer reported. And there appears to be a breach in the hull. Water is flowing in. Alina made her decision instantly. Prep the rescue team. If there are survivors in there, they won't last long. Zareth fought against unconsciousness, the acrid smell of burning circuitry filling the bridge. Around him, crew members lay motionless or groaned in pain. Through the cracked view screen, he could see the nightmare made real, dark water seeping through the fractures, droplets already beginning to collect on the deck. Emergency protocols, he gasped, dragging himself to the command console. Seal all compartments. But the ship's systems were unresponsive, and the water continued to advance. Several droplets splashed against an unconscious crew member's arm, and Zareth watched in horror as the flesh began to bubble and dissolve where they landed. They were going to die here, dissolved alive in this corrosive soup. Their beacon hadn't deployed before the crash. No one would know what happened to them. The Empire would simply mark another water world for avoidance, never knowing it had become their grave. A loud clang reverberated through the hull, followed by a hissing sound. Zareth braced himself for the final breach that would flood the compartment. Instead, a section of the wall glowed red, then orange, then began to cut away in a perfect circle. Aliens? On a water world? Impossible. The cut section fell away, and Zareth found himself face to face with a being unlike any he'd encountered. It was Bikdal, encased entirely in some form of protective suit, with artificial appendages that must have been tools attached to its limbs. Behind it, more such creatures waited, all similarly protected from their toxic environment. The lead creature approached slowly, hands raised in what Zareth recognized as a universal gesture of non-aggression. It pointed to itself, then to Zareth and the other injured Krellians, then back toward the opening it had created. It wanted to help them into the water. Zareth backed away, terror overwhelming his pain. No, the water will dissolve us. But the creature seemed insistent, pointing again to the injured crew, then making the sweeping gesture that suggested time was running out. As if to emphasize the point, a larger crack appeared in the view screen, water now streaming in more steadily. With no other options, Zareth made the hardest decision of his life. He nodded his agreement. The creatures moved quickly, producing translucent bags made of some flexible material. They carefully placed each injured Krellian into a bag, sealed it, then extracted the water before moving them through the opening. Zareth was the last to go, watching in amazement as the creatures handled his unconscious comrades with surprising gentleness, protecting them from the very substance that made up most of their world. As they placed him in one of the bags, Zareth's last conscious thought was that perhaps death by water would be quicker than he'd feared. Alina watched through the medical bay's observation window as the ship's doctors examined the unconscious aliens. The decision to bring them aboard had been instinctive. They were clearly in distress, and the prime directive of the EMDF was to render assistance to any vessel in peril, regardless of origin. "What can you tell me, Doctor?" she asked. Dr. Patel looked up from his tablet. "They're unlike anything in our xenobiology simulations, Captain. Silicon-based life forms with crystalline cellular structures. Their biochemistry is completely alien, but we've managed to stabilize the 6 survivors. And their reaction to water? Catastrophic. It acts as a powerful solvent to their molecular structure. We've kept them in the isolation ward with humidity set to near zero. He paused. Captain, they should be dead. That crash would have killed most organisms, and then the water exposure. They're remarkably resilient. Elena nodded. What about communication? We've been running their vocalizations through the linguistic algorithms. The AI thinks it can establish a rudimentary translation matrix within a few hours. Good. Let me know as soon as any of them regain consciousness. As Elena turned to leave, an alarm sounded, and Dr. Patel's tablet flashed with an alert. One of them is waking up, he said. Zareth's consciousness returned slowly, his senses reporting contradictory data. He was alive. That much was clear from the pain radiating through his body. But he was also dry. Completely dry. Had it all been a nightmare? He opened his eyes to find himself in a white room, lying on some kind of platform. Medical equipment, recognizable despite its primitive design, surrounded him, and tubes connected to his arms delivered fluids directly into his system. Most shocking of all, one of the alien creatures stood nearby, watching him. Without its protective suit, Zareth could now see it clearly. A soft-bodied organism with a bizarre outer covering of colored fabric, topped with a growth of dark filaments. The creature spoke, its sounds meaningless to Zareth. Then it touched something on its wrist, and a mechanical voice translated. You are safe. We rescued you and your crew from your damaged vessel. Do you understand me? Zareth attempted to respond, his voice weak. Where am I? What are you? After a moment's delay, the translation came. You are aboard the Earth Maritime Defense Force vessel Poseidon. I am Captain Elena Reyes, a human. Human, Zareth repeated, testing the unfamiliar word. Why did you save us? How did you save us? The water. We observed your distress and your reaction to water. We used vacuum-sealed biodegradable polymer bags to transport you safely. Your ship is being recovered as we speak. Zareth struggled to process this information. These humans lived on a water world, yet had technology advanced enough for space observation and underwater rescue operations. They had recognized the danger water posed to Krellians within moments and adapted their rescue protocols accordingly. My crew. 5 others survived. They're being treated in similar conditions. 5 out of a crew of 14. A terrible loss, but far better than the total annihilation Zareth had expected. The human, Elena, stepped closer. We have questions, as I'm sure you do. But first, may I know your name and origin? I am First Officer Zareth of the Krellian Empire scout ship Luminous Edge. Elena nodded. Welcome to Earth, First Officer Zareth. When you're feeling stronger, I'd like to show you something that might change your perspective on water worlds. 2 days later, Zareth stood in a specialized observation chamber constructed to maintain the dry, low-humidity environment he required. Before him stretched a vast transparent wall, offering a view into what the humans called an aquarium, an artificial environment, filled with water and populated by countless aquatic organisms. This is just a small sample of Earth's marine biodiversity, Elena explained through the communication system. Over 2 million known species evolved in our oceans, with more discovered every year. Zareth watched in fascination as creatures of every imaginable shape and color moved through the water. Some propelled themselves with appendages, others seemed to undulate their entire bodies, and still others drifted with the currents. And humans evolved from this environment. Our distant ancestors did, yes. Life on Earth began in the oceans billions of years ago. Even now, we retain some adaptations from those origins. Our bodies are primarily water. We can hold our breath underwater for limited periods, and some humans can even give birth in water. The concept was almost incomprehensible to Zareth. The Krellians had evolved on a world where water was scarce and precious. existing primarily as crystalline ice or carefully managed underground reservoirs. The idea of a species not just surviving, but thriving in constant proximity to such vast quantities of the substance was remarkable, he whispered. There's more, Elena said. With your permission, I'd like to transport you to one of our underwater habitats. We've prepared a sealed observation module that will maintain your environmental requirements while allowing you to see how we've adapted to life beneath the waves. Zareth hesitated. The thought of being surrounded by water, separated from it by only a layer of material, sent primal fear coursing through him. But curiosity, the driving force behind all Krellian exploration, ultimately won out. I would be honored, he said. As preparations were made for the journey, Zareth's personal communicator activated with an encrypted signal. The Luminous Edge's emergency beacon had finally activated upon recovery of the wreckage, and the message was clear. A Krellian battle group was en route to investigate the disappearance of their scout ship. They would arrive within Earth's orbit in less than 12 hours, with no knowledge of humanity's peaceful intentions or remarkable adaptations. To the Krellian Empire, Earth would be classified as a Class 1 hazardous world, uninhabitable, worthless, and potentially dangerous, unless Zareth could convince them otherwise. Tides of Alliance. The Krellian battle cruiser Immutable Diamond emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, its crystalline hull refracting starlight into prismatic patterns. On the command deck, High Admiral Vraxis studied the tactical display with narrowed eyes. The third planet, predominantly blue, dominated the central projection. Status report, he demanded. Scout ship signal confirmed, Admiral. The Luminous Edge crashed on the Waterworld 12 standard cycles ago. No communication since emergency beacon activation. Vraxis's crystalline features hardened. Life signs. Inconclusive at this range. However, we're detecting artificial structures both on the surface and beneath the water. Impossible. Vraxis stepped closer to the display. No advanced civilization develops on a water world. The molecular instability alone would prevent technological progress. Nevertheless, Admiral, we're detecting energy signatures consistent with a pre-spacefaring civilization. And there's more. The wreckage of the Luminous Edge has been moved. Something retrieved it from the crash site. Vraxis felt the first stirrings of alarm. If some water-dwelling creatures had captured Krellian citizens, the diplomatic implications could be severe. The Empire had strict protocols about contact with pre-spacefaring species, even more so for potentially hostile ones. Prepare a communication array, all frequencies, all known diplomatic protocols, and ready the dissolver weapons. If we cannot recover our people safely, we will not allow them to suffer. The dissolver was the Krellian weapon of last resort, a device that could instantly vaporize all water within a targeted area. Originally designed for mining operations on ice moons, it had proven equally effective as a strategic weapon against water-dependent species. Admiral, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's using our own encryption protocols. Vraxis straightened. On screen. The projection shifted to reveal a face Vraxis recognized immediately. First Officer Zareth, alive but clearly injured, his crystalline features showing stress fractures. High Admiral, Zareth began, I must urgently request that you take no hostile action toward this planet or its inhabitants. I and 5 other survivors of the Luminous Edge have been rescued and treated with respect by the native species, who call themselves humans. Rescued by water dwellers. Vraxis could hardly believe what he was hearing. They are not exclusively aquatic, Admiral. They have adapted to live both on land and sea. More importantly, they recognized our vulnerability to water immediately and took extraordinary measures to protect us during rescue operations. Vraxis listened with growing skepticism as Zareth described the humans' response to the crash, their medical intervention, and their technological capabilities. It defied all Krellian understanding of how life and civilization should develop. I request permission to facilitate first contact protocols, Zareth concluded. The humans have expressed interest in peaceful exchange and have already demonstrated goodwill. They have prepared appropriate environmental accommodations for a diplomatic delegation. Vraxis considered his options. Empire protocol dictated extreme caution when dealing with unknown species, particularly those from hostile environments. Yet Zareth was a respected officer whose judgment had proven reliable in the past. Very well, he decided. We will establish orbit and send a single shuttle with a diplomatic team. You will serve as liaison, first officer. But be warned, at the first sign of duplicity, we will extract our people by any means necessary. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the specially constructed landing platform at the New Atlantis Underwater Research Station, 300 meters beneath the Pacific Ocean's surface. Around her, a hastily assembled welcome committee of scientists, military officers, and government officials waited nervously for humanity's first official extraterrestrial diplomatic contact. The station itself was one of Earth's most advanced underwater habitats, a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and tunnels that housed over 5,000 researchers, engineers, and support staff. Constructed at the edge of an abyssal trench, it offered both scientific opportunities and strategic advantages, with direct access to the deepest parts of the ocean. Next to Alina, Zareth shifted uncomfortably in his environmental suit. Despite its advanced design, created by Earth's best engineers in less than 48 hours, it still restricted his movement somewhat. "Are you certain this location was the right choice, Captain?" he asked. "My people would feel more secure on your land masses, away from the water." Alina smiled. "Trust me, First Officer. If we're going to change the Krellian perception of water worlds, we need to show them what we've accomplished here. New Atlantis represents the pinnacle of human adaptation to the underwater environment." Through the massive transparent dome above them, they could see the Krellian shuttle descending through the water. An improbable sight given the aliens' fear of the substance. The shuttle was entirely encased in a specially designed hyperphobic field that repelled water molecules, creating a bubble of air around the vessel as it submerged. "Remarkable technology," Alina commented. "The applications for deep-sea exploration alone would revolutionize our understanding of the ocean floor." "A necessity for us," Zareth replied. "Without it, no Krellian would ever willingly enter a body of water, no matter how protected they might be personally." The shuttle docked with a pneumatic hiss, connecting to an airlock system designed to keep the reception area completely dry. When the doors finally opened, High Admiral Vraxis emerged with 4 other Krellians, all wearing environmental suits similar to Zareth's but more ornate, befitting their higher status. Alina approached with hands open in the universal gesture of peace that Zareth had explained to her. "High Admiral Vraxis, on behalf of the United Earth Government, I welcome you to New Atlantis. I am Captain Alina Reyes of the Earth Maritime Defense Force." The translation devices worked perfectly, converting her words into the crystalline tones of Krellian speech and vice versa. "Captain Reyes," Vraxis responded stiffly. "The Krellian Empire acknowledges your assistance to our citizens and your invitation to diplomatic exchange." The formalities continued as introductions were made all around. Throughout it all, Alina noted that the Admiral's gaze kept drifting to the transparent walls and ceiling of the reception area, beyond which schools of bioluminescent fish drifted past, and the filtered sunlight created dancing patterns on the station's exterior. Perhaps, Alina suggested once the introductions were complete, you would care for a tour of our facility. "We've prepared environmental controls in all areas you'll visit to ensure your comfort and safety." Vraxis hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, First Officer Zareth has made extraordinary claims about your civilization's relationship with water. I would see the evidence firsthand." The tour proceeded through the research station's main sections, the marine biology labs, where scientists studied deep-sea organisms, the advanced aquaculture facilities that provided sustainable food for the station's population, the engineering section where new submersible technologies were tested, and finally, the strategic command center that monitored all activity in this sector of the Pacific. Throughout it all, Elena watched the Krellians' reactions shift from thinly veiled disgust to cautious interest and finally to undisguised fascination. Your species evolved on land, Vraxis noted as they observed a team of aquanauts training in a massive water tank. Yet you choose to build habitats beneath the waves. The oceans cover more than 70% of our planet's surface, Elena explained. For most of human history, they represented a frontier as unconquerable as space. But we've always been drawn to explore, to adapt, to overcome natural limitations. When climate change threatened coastal cities a century ago, we didn't retreat inland. We built downward and outward, developing new technologies to live in harmony with the sea. And now, Earth's oceans house nearly 1 billion people in habitats ranging from small research outposts to massive underwater metropolises. We farm the sea, harness its energy, and have developed entirely new branches of science, medicine, and engineering based on marine biology and oceanography. Vraxis fell silent, processing this information. Finally, he turned to Zareth. You were right, First Officer. This challenges everything we believed about water worlds and their potential. Elena was about to suggest they move on to discussing potential areas of technological exchange when an urgent alert sounded throughout the station. Her communicator activated automatically. Captain Reyes, her XO's voice came through clearly. We have multiple unidentified vessels approaching Earth at high velocity. Non-human design, and definitely not Krellian based on the signatures we're tracking. Elena glanced at Vraxis, whose posture had suddenly stiffened. You're expecting company, Admiral. No, he replied, his voice tense. But I fear I know who they might be. The tactical display in New Atlantis' command center showed 12 sleek, predatory-looking vessels decelerating into Earth orbit. Unlike the crystalline elegance of Krellian design, these ships were dark, organic-looking constructs with protruding spines and asymmetrical features. The Vex, Vraxis explained grimly, a nomadic predator species from the outer arm of the galaxy. They've been raiding Krellian outposts for decades. And now they've followed you here, Elena concluded. Are they aquaphobic like your people? No. The Vex evolved on a marsh world. Water doesn't harm them, though they prefer not to submerge completely. Elena's mind raced through the strategic implications. Then we have an advantage they won't expect. Before she could elaborate, the communications array activated, and a harsh, guttural voice filled the command center. Krellian vessels, this is Warlord Krasik of the Vex Armada. We have tracked your energy signature across 3 sectors. Surrender your ships and technology, or we will take them from the burning remains of your vessels and this primitive world you have found. Vraxis stepped forward. This is High Admiral Vraxis of the Krellian Empire. The world you threaten is under our protection by provisional treaty. Any hostile action against it will be considered an act of war against the Empire. A rasping sound that might have been laughter came through the speakers. A treaty? With water dwellers? Your desperation amuses me, Krellian. We have intercepted your communications. We know your battle group consists of just 3 ships. My armada will crush them and then take what we want from this blue world. The transmission cut off abruptly. He's right about one thing, Vraxis admitted. We are outmatched in space. The immutable diamond is a powerful vessel, but it cannot stand against 12 Vex warships alone. Elena shared a look with her XO, then turned to Vraxis. Then perhaps it's time to show you why water worlds make such effective natural fortresses. The next 6 hours were a flurry of activity as Elena coordinated with Earth's unified defense forces and the Krellian battle group. The plan they developed was audacious, relying on technologies the Vex couldn't possibly anticipate and the natural properties of Earth's oceans that the Krellians had always feared. When the Vex attack finally came, it began predictably enough. Their ships engaged the Krellian vessels in high orbit, forcing them to retreat toward Earth's atmosphere. What they didn't expect was for the Krellians to dive directly into the ocean, their hydrophobic fields creating massive bubbles around their ships as they submerge. Tracking Vex landing craft, reported the tactical officer in New Atlantis' command center. 37 vessels descending through the atmosphere, targeting major coastal cities and our battle group's submersion points. Elena nodded. Just as we predicted. Execute Operation Undertow. Across Earth's oceans, defenses that had remained hidden from orbital scans activated simultaneously. Massive underwater railguns broke the surface just long enough to fire hypersonic projectiles at the descending Vex ships, while swarms of autonomous submersible drones rose from the depths to engage those that made it through the initial barrage. On the command deck of his flagship, Warlord Krazek watched in disbelief as half his landing force was destroyed before reaching the surface. Impossible. Our scans showed minimal defensive capabilities. His tactical officer scrambled to explain. The weapons were hidden beneath the water, Warlord. Our sensors cannot penetrate the deeper ocean layers effectively. Krazek snarled in frustration. Land the remaining forces. We will establish beachheads and advance from there. But the Vex ground forces found no easy victory awaiting them. As they established positions along coastlines and began to advance inland, the waters behind them surged. Rising from the depths came Earth's aquatic infantry divisions, soldiers in advanced diving suits armed with weapons specifically designed for amphibious combat. Alongside them emerged the massive forms of submarine carriers like the Poseidon, their weapon systems unleashing devastating firepower on the exposed Vex positions. In the Pacific theater, Elena personally led the counterattack from the bridge of the Poseidon. Status report on the Krellian vessels. They've reached the Mariana Trench staging area, Captain. The Vex cannot track them at that depth. Perfect. Begin Phase 2. The Poseidon descended rapidly, its reinforced hull easily withstanding the increasing pressure as they plunged toward the ocean floor. Behind them, a dozen smaller submersibles followed, each carrying specialized equipment. At the designated coordinates, they deployed what Elena had nicknamed the Bubble Makers, devices that utilized the same hydrophobic field technology as the Krellian vessels, but on a massive scale. As they activated, enormous domes of air began to form beneath the ocean, growing and merging until they created a vast underwater cavity nearly a kilometer across. Inside this impossible space, protected from the crushing pressure of the deep by advanced force fields, the Krellian battle group and Earth's submersible fleet rendezvoused. Vraxis stared in wonder at the sight. Ships designed for space and ships designed for water, now sharing the same improbable sanctuary beneath 7 kilometers of ocean. The Vex will never think to look for us here, Elena explained through the communication link. Even if they did, their sensors cannot penetrate these depths effectively. A brilliant strategy, Vraxis acknowledged. But we cannot hide forever. Eventually, they will consolidate their hold on the surface. We're not hiding, Admiral. We're preparing. Elena gestured to the deployment of specialized equipment around the perimeter of the bubble. Earth's oceans don't just offer us protection. They provide us with weapons the Vex cannot comprehend. Warlord Krazek grew increasingly agitated as reports of failed coastal assaults continued to pour in. His forces, accustomed to swift victories against unprepared planets, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn by defenders who used the water as both shield and sword. "Where are the Krellian ships?" he demanded. "Our scanners cannot locate them." "Unknown, Warlord. They disappeared beneath the ocean surface and have not reemerged." Krazek slammed his fist against the command console. "No matter. We control the skies. Without space capability, this world will eventually fall." As if in answer to his proclamation, the ship's sensors blared with sudden warnings. Across Earth's oceans, something was happening. Massive disturbances in the water, energetic anomalies that defied explanation. "What is this?" Krazek demanded. Before his tactical officer could respond, the first hydrothermal charge detonated. Designed by Earth engineers and enhanced with Krellian energy technology, The weapon converted the potential energy of pressurized superheated water into a devastating plasma burst that shot upward through the ocean at hypersonic speeds. The Vex ship directly above the detonation point never had a chance. The plasma column punched through its hull like tissue paper, continuing upward into the atmosphere where it dissipated in a spectacular light show visible from thousands of kilometers away. Across the planet, dozens of similar detonations followed in quick succession. Each blast utilized the natural pressure and temperature differentials of Earth's oceanic trenches, amplified by technology, to create weapons of unprecedented power, weapons that left no radiation, no fallout, only steam and temporarily displaced water that soon settled back into the eternal cycle of Earth's oceans. On the command deck of his rapidly disintegrating flagship, Warlord Krazak watched in disbelief as his mighty armada was systematically destroyed by weapons launched from the very substance he had dismissed as merely an obstacle. The final transmission from the Vex flagship was short and filled with static. Retreat. Full retreat. The water. It's alive. It's. 3 weeks later, Elena stood with Zareth and Admiral Vraxis on the observation deck of New Atlantis, watching schools of genetically enhanced coral being transplanted to rebuild reefs damaged during the conflict. The Vex had been decisively defeated, with only 3 of their vessels escaping Earth's gravity well. The remaining Vex ground forces had surrendered within days, cut off from orbital support and overwhelmed by Earth's amphibious capabilities. "Your world is remarkable, Captain Reyes," Vraxis said quietly. "In all the Empire's history, we never imagined that a water world could not only support advanced life, but serve as a natural fortress." Elena smiled. "Every planet offers both challenges and advantages to the species that evolve there. We learned to see water as an ally rather than an enemy. And now the Krellian Empire must reconsider centuries of doctrine," Zareth added. "How many potential allies have we overlooked because we feared their environments?" Vraxis nodded solemnly. "The Imperial Council has already approved a permanent diplomatic mission to Earth and authorized research into technologies that might allow limited Krellian habitation on water worlds." "And what about you, First Officer Zareth?" Elena asked. "Will you be returning to the Empire?" Zareth's crystalline features seemed to shimmer with emotion. "With the Admiral's permission, I have requested assignment to the Earth diplomatic mission. Your oceans still terrify me, Captain, but they also fascinate me in ways I never thought possible." As they spoke, a massive whale swam past the transparent dome, its ancient eyes seeming to regard the unlikely trio with serene wisdom. Here, in the depths that had once represented only death to the Krellians, 2 species had found common ground and perhaps the beginnings of a profound alliance. "To water," Elena proposed, raising the container of purified H2O that the Krellians could safely observe but never touch. "May it continue to protect and nurture life throughout the galaxy."